Why do American cities have so many mentally ill people wandering the streets? There's no systems to treat them, so they just kind of float around. In the 1980s, the Reagan administration closed our large state mental institutions. And the rural areas have no services, so people tend to migrate to the cities just to survive. Because our healthcare system is broken and the only thing our politicians and leaders care about is money. The U.S. is an individualist society. They believe anyone can succeed and those who don't are responsible for their own failure and the consequences. It makes them callous in ways not really seen elsewhere in wealthy, developed nations. Carl Sagan addressed this in the 90s. But I believe the government has a responsibility to care for the people. I'm talking about making people self-reliant, people able to take care of themselves. There are countries which are perfectly able to do that. The United States is an extremely rich country. It's perfectly able to do that. It chooses not to. It chooses to have homeless people. The United States does not take care of its people. Capitalism has been triumphant. This leaves the U.S. citizens in a desperate situation. Work or die. It is designed this way by the capitalist. This causes tremendous pressure on the mental health of the average citizen. Add a citizen who is below average in mental stability and they will fail from the pressure. The state provides almost no lifelines for success. Any that are provided are minimal and do not promote a successful recovery. Canada is pretty bad too. If I remember correctly, there was Supreme Court ruling O'Connor v. Donaldson. That made it much harder for government entities to commit people. After that, states started defunding their asylums due to lack of use. I could be wrong, though. Emo. 1. We don't equally educate our citizens. 2. We don't provide adequate or equal care for our citizens. 3. We don't have navigatable, equitable resources for citizens. We cut socialized healthcare for the disabled. Damn near wiped out asylums and long-term care facilities. And lumped the bulk of the care on the parents and families. We have made the application process for state or federally funded help near impossible to navigate and receive. We have made any and all health-related care impossible to afford. We have butchered mental health care to the point of near non-existence. This is what results from years of making cuts. What is it like in other countries? It's weird to think there are places where homeless people aren't all over all the big cities. Like most problems in this country born out of what were at the time good intentions, we overcorrected for what was a broken and deeply abusive mental health system that for centuries involuntarily locked away people who really didn't belong there. Now it's borderline impossible to get someone involuntarily committed unless there's a history of harm to themselves or others. Most people with mental health issues are technically nonviolent but deeply self-destructive, and many will either not agree to voluntarily seek out the help they need or simply can't afford the treatment. Well, you see, we used to hospitalize, torture, and experiment on the mentally ill. We decided not to do that anymore. However, instead of just not torturing them, we decided to shut down the hospitals and release the mentally ill onto the streets. Police and other first responders are now their caregivers. Definitely a big uptick in the number of people walking around psychotic. It's partially due to a new, cheaper way of making meth. This new recipe is leaving people permanently deranged. Ronald Reagan. Edit. Reagan closed the institutions that kept them off the streets. It takes an act of God to get a referral to psych. Healthcare is expensive as hell. Sometimes psych isn't even covered under your health insurance. Oh, and those psych meds are hundreds of dollars to upwards of thousands a month. So yeah, it's cheaper to be homeless. The average American would answer, where else would they be, and why is that my problem? Because we got rid of state-sponsored mental health decades ago. People don't really care about mental health until it impacts them directly. And even then most folks forget all about the entire issue once they're medicated, healthy again. Because healthcare has been transformed into a business rather than a service, and there is a significant wealth imbalance. The rich get richer and the working class suffers. Poor people are severely disadvantaged. It's inhumane and immoral. Because we do not have universal health care, they can't afford to get treatment. And many then end up homeless with no help or resources. From my perspective, apart from what has been said above by other Redditors, which I agree on, I also think it is because of a lack of familial relationship within American families. I understand the whole letting your bird leave the nest to prepare them for the outside world agenda, but it puts a whole lot of pressure on the kid. I talk to my folks back home every other day. It's an act of checking up on each other. Hell, I don't need to make an appointment to go to my parents' place, but I feel like Americans who have left that nest at the age of 18-19. Don't get me wrong, I have too. Have a lot of burden weighed at them at an early age, which may result in them seeking a getaway to subsidize this emotional turmoil. Canada is just as bad. And I imagine because of the same issue. The mentally ill are no longer being safely housed and treated long-term at hospitals. I used to volunteer at one when I was in college, and I was in a ward where the patients were being prepared to live in group homes because the government had recently announced the hospital's closure. These were patients who needed daily medications, had hallucinations, and still needed help with even the most basic things, like brushing their teeth. There's no way any of them did well in group homes, and I'm sure all of them ended up homeless. Anti-socialism has its problems, and this is a major one.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.